Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
And guys, we are recording on a Friday afternoon, so the day after we could just call it an ugly win there against the Phoenix Suns. And look, there's actually a decent amount for us to talk about here. There's a little bit of trade rumors that popped out over this past week. So obviously that Suns game, we could look ahead in the schedule. There's plenty of Pistons stuff to talk about. So why don't we just jump into that Suns game? Because, honestly, I have no idea where you want to take this conversation. There's some good, plenty of bad. I feel like we can run with here. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts of what we witnessed after the Pistons get kind of like a mini All-Star break. Like, what was this, 5 days off for them? 4 days off
crazy.
for them? That's weird. Yeah,
and I mean, good for the team, like especially in a time where health was turning into a bit of an issue. And I think the biggest thing to take away from the Suns game is Jalen Duren's back, Cade Cunningham's back. So obviously good news there, but the game in general, definitely an ugly win, but it's just credit to how serious this team is that they can find a way to win when as a group they shoot 28% from three, 62% from the foul line, and the Suns were without Devin Booker, so it's definitely a game that you should win, even though this Suns team has been a lot more impressive than a lot of people thought going into the season. And a lot of credit to that is because of the players who are around Devin Booker. So when we got the news that Booker was going to miss, I was like, okay, this is going to be a game where Grayson Allen and Colin Gillespie are going to go off from three and get their shots. And I mean, Grayson Allen had 23 point attempts himself, which is insane. And Colin Gillespie was good too. And the rest of their starting unit was mostly solid. But if you would tell me that the Pistons would win a game where Grayson Allen scored 33 points and Cade Cunningham just scored 10, I would tell you that's crazy. It was clearly an off night from the group overall. There was a ton to clean up, but I mean, just credit to the team for finding a way to win a game that they definitely shouldn't have.
Yeah, good teams win ugly, right? I guess if you really want a positive to take from it, like it does go to this team's credit that, like you said, on a night where they shoot 28% from three on 32 attempts, so it's not like they weren't putting them up this game. The first half, I think they were under 40% from the floor. Like there was plenty going wrong for the team in this game, including but not limited to Cade Cunningham being 3 of 16 from the floor, 0 of 7 from the 3-point line, and maybe most telling to just how the night was going for Cade, 4 of 9 from the free throw line. This was so OG unnamed YouTube user says Cade's hand was obviously a problem yesterday. Like, I don't know if it was the hand, because he had a wrist injury that he got coming out of that New York Knicks game. I don't know if it was necessarily that. It could have been, but we have seen this before with Cade, haven't we? It hasn't been so much this season, but in the past in his career, he's come back kind of rough from long stretches off. What was a little bit more unique with this one is I don't think his 3-point shots were short, really. It just looked like he couldn't buy a bucket to me. I don't call that rust, call that shaking off the injury. I don't know what you want to call it, but he just couldn't buy a bucket. Now 38 minutes played for him, 11 assists. He only had, let's see, where were the turnovers? He only had 5 turnovers. I know that's actually a lot, but like for him, with how much he's handling the ball, to have a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio with 11 assists, that's actually pretty good. So he wasn't terrible otherwise. It was just, what a terrible night from the floor.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, an off night is putting it lightly. And yeah, definitely give a little bit of slack there because he's coming back from a big break and then missing some time before that. Um, but yeah, I mean, he still played 38 minutes. Like you said, he was able to get 11 assists. So hopefully this isn't something that can continue. I mean, maybe luckily for the Pistons, their next game is against the Pacers. So if there was any other team, I'd be like, Cade needs to turn this around much quicker. But yeah, it was just an off night in general, super inefficient from the floor. Couldn't buy a bucket. Luckily, he was able to keep the offense going otherwise. So I'm hoping it was rust just from missing some time and the absurdly long break for not having an all-star break in the middle of it that the Pistons had. So I'm hopeful that they're just getting over that, and hopefully it turns around in time for this Pacers game and then ahead, because obviously the Pistons need Cade Cunningham to score more than 10 points to win a great majority of their games.
All right, so I wanted to get into like two players from this game before we start talking about Jaden Ivey, which the comment section here with YouTube user wants to start talking about. So we will. I want to talk Jaden Ivey, but first I want to ask: do you want to give a little bit of flowers, or do you want to give the mixed bag conversation?
Let's continue the mixed bag and then end on a high note.
All right, the mixed bag. I loved how Jalen Duren started this game. He was aggressive. He was hunting for his shot in that first quarter. And then I don't know what happened after he went to the bench, but he only shoots 13 shots in this game and only gets to the free throw line one time. I did not think he was all that aggressive down the stretch, particularly in the second half when everyone else was at this point kind of like had gotten their feet back under him and was, kind of survived, right, that initial surge there in the second quarter from the Suns. So like I thought it started off so good and then it kind of fell off. And again, this is weird to say out of a guy who in 28 minutes had 16 points and 18 rebounds along with 2 blocks, which is pretty nice for him. But like I felt like they needed more out of him. This is one of those games where we talked about it, I think, on the last show, right? Cade Cunningham was off. Duncan Robinson ends up being the second or the leading scorer for this team. And then it's Tobias Harris and Jalen Duren. You really wish on a night where Cade can't seem to get anything going offensively, you really wish that your second all-star, right, your second best player offensively, that he could step up and maybe do what a Grayson Allen did, right? Put up 30 points or get up close to it. Be impactful in the way that just for this night, right, that your superstar couldn't be. And we didn't really see that. And he was efficient enough to do it. Again, it's just a volume problem.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was going to frame it. On a game where Cade is off 3 for 16 from the floor, he still led the team with the most shots. Jalen Duren was the next highest with 13. So when there is, and I mean, it is a little bit challenging just because Cade is still available. He's obviously going to try and get his still, as well as make things happen for his teammates. But when it's clear that he can't buy a bucket, definitely want to see Duren be more aggressive. And that's something we've talked about at length really over this season and this leap that he's taken. Like, I thought he had a solid game. The one thing that you can bring up is definitely just getting more shots, because I mean, if this were the Suns when they're missing their best player, you had Grayson Allen lead the team with 25 field goal attempts. Wildly, 20 of those were from 3. But like, I wonder if Cade Cunningham missed this game and Jalen Duren was on the floor. Like, I'm not sure if Jalen Duren's shot volume would go up dramatically. And I think that's just something that he needs to keep in mind, because he's earned the right to get more volume and be a little bit more selfish. It's just he's not doing that a lot of the time. And credit to him, he's probably like just trying to make the right basketball play and get the best shot and everything, but he can be dominant on the floor. And I mean, Mark Williams has been solid for the Suns and everything, but I didn't think the matchup was necessarily super bad for him to take a step back. So like you said, it's just a volume problem. I hope he gets more aggressive and just like hunting his shots a little bit more as the season goes on. But yeah, we've seen this for a bit now, and I hope it changes eventually.
Yeah, and like I think it can. So OG unnamed YouTube user, I like this comment, says he likes Duran a lot, but he isn't a long-term second offensive option. He definitely isn't a number one if Cade Cunningham is out. And like, that's the thing, right? That's the thing that's kind of hanging up in the air to me. I think that he can do it, right? I think that we saw it for a month. So we do have some sample here that would suggest that this is a possible outcome for Jalen Duran. And the fact that it is, like you said, it's an aggression thing. It's probably aggression's not the right word, but it's a selfishness, right? You've earned the right to go and take 20 shots on a night where Cade just can't hit water if he fell off a boat, right? You've earned that right. If Cade Cunningham goes down with an injury and the team's looking for someone to step up, you've earned the right to be the guy to give it a go. And I think you saw it, right? Like in that first quarter, he was really aggressive getting his own shot. And it looked pretty good. At one point, I think he was 2 for 5, but you live with the looks that he was getting. It's just, you need to be, in my opinion, he needs to be consistent with that. And he can be, he's just got to find the time to do it. So let's give some flowers here. I do want to give out some flowers to Tobias Harris, Duncan Robinson, and how about Dennis Jenkins in the 6 minutes that he had, kind of changing the energy of that second quarter? He didn't play a lot. I don't even think he played in the second half, did he?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. So he comes into the second quarter when the Suns are just kind of running away with it. And lo and behold, Dennis brings a little bit of energy as a firecracker off the bench, and the game's still competitive going into halftime. So we got to give him a little bit of credit. Yeah, the Pistons won the second quarter, Blake.
Yeah.
They won the second
33
quarter.
to 31. And yeah, YouTube user brings up Ron Holland as well, who had 11 points in 21 minutes, 3 for 6 from the floor, and 5 for 9 from the free throw line. I mean, on a night where Cade's off, you're not going to even stay in it, let alone have a chance to win, if you don't have a balanced offense, or just if you're not getting contributions elsewhere. You saw that from really everyone else in the starting lineup outside of Asar Thompson in his 19 minutes. But yeah, this is a game where you need Duncan Robinson to make shots. We'll talk about Jaden Ivey in a moment, but the only other player with more than 1 3 beside Jaden Ivey was Duncan Robinson, and you really needed him to do that. And Tobias Harris gives you 16 points as well. So the role, I don't really like the term like role players, but just the supporting casts of your top 2 players in Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duran has been able to keep the offense afloat when those 2 guys are struggling or just getting more of the defense thrown at them, which that's why the Pistons won this game, really. And I mean, what's crazy is you look at the fourth quarter, neither team scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, credit to the defense for a lot of it was the Suns missing shots too, but they only scored 15 points in the fourth quarter. And you get some big buckets elsewhere and are able, even though you let the Suns get out to a big lead at the start and it was an uphill battle, they were able to get back there. And it's really just because of how well the supporting cast was able to play.
Yeah. And, so I'm looking at the quarter by quarter score of the box score really for the first time here. I always, I look at the player stuff and obviously watch the games, but like the Pistons won 3 out of those 4 quarters. I'm floored by that. I mean, that again, a credit to this team to be able to, on a night where they just didn't have it, they really did drag Phoenix into the mud. I mean, the Suns shot 41% from the floor on more shots than the Pistons had. Right, so they shoot 41% from the floor. The Pistons free throw percentage is getting a lot of attention, while the Suns were 64% from the free throw line. Like the Pistons really did just pull them into a dogfight and came out on top of it. That's kind of, we've seen that before, right? So I guess it is truly to the credit of the team to be able to win in a couple different ways. And one of those is really ugly basketball, but I'd rather win those than lose them. What did you think about Jaden Ivey in this game? So YouTube user says here that JB is a great coach overall, and I think we agree with that. But he says not playing Jaden Ivey in the second quarter after a great start was criminal. So what did you think out of Jaden Ivey here against Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, Ivy gets out and has that great first quarter, scores 8 points, like pretty much right away. And I think just as a whole, you could probably say this is the best game that he's had since his return from injury, scoring 15 points in just 17 minutes, going 3 for 5 from 3. Was certainly a big reason that the Pistons were able to win this game. I mean, Wes, what you brought up with Dennis Jenkins, like maybe that's why Ivy didn't play in the second quarter. JB was trying to do something different, but I think like Ivy could have been that player too. And I mean, luckily Dennis Jenkins had that great stretch that he had as well. But I thought Ivy was aggressive. He was confident. The shots were falling, which I mean, isn't always the case, but I think he proved that he can be a big part of this offense as well. And it's just one game, and he's certainly had like good games since he's come back and some other games where we've been hoping for more. But I mean, you can't be anything but thrilled with this performance from Jaden Ivey, I think.
I might be a little less than thrilled.
Okay.
Look, I think offensively he was really good.
Yeah.
I do not think he was very good defensively at all. I thought he got lost off ball quite a bit, and he really struggled when he got switched out onto those guards the Phoenix had. So obviously we've talked about Grayson Allen having a nice night, but like, how about Colin Gillespie? He played really nice, right? He had 18 points, 4-6 from the 3-point line. I thought he was really impactful, and a lot of times Jaden Ivey did have that assignment. I think it's a product. The minutes not being over 20 is a product of two things. One, I do think it was Dennis Jenkins. I think that was a pretty shrewd move by JB Bickerstaff to get a little invigoration of energy into the team into that second quarter to salvage what was going downhill really, really quickly. But also, I just think Ivy really, really struggled defensively. And I get that if, especially on a night when your star player is having a just terrible game from the floor, I get that maybe you want to lean more into the offense, but to that credit, you've already got a Duncan Robinson who in that game was 7 of 12 from the floor, 4 of 7 from 3, right? You've already got a Tobias Harris, 6 of 11, Jalen Duren, 8 of 13. Like they were able to score. Ron Holland, we mentioned him earlier. He had a nice night, 11 points, 3 of 6 from the floor. Like, it wasn't pretty, but they did end up at 47% from the floor as a team, right? They were putting the ball in the basket for this game, like for the standard that they set in this game. They were doing okay offensively. Where they were really struggling was just those ill-timed big shots from Phoenix's guards, and Jaden Ivey had a lot to do with some of those. So I think that's probably why he didn't get more looks. Like, because Karis LeVert, he's struggled. In 16 minutes, he had 2 points. One shot, right? Karis did not have a nice night. But I think he was better defensively.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. I think Ivy's offensive contributions were needed on this night, especially like if he doesn't have those 8 points in the first quarter, a 9-point Phoenix lead could have been much worse. And I think I have I need to take it upon myself to like hope for more from Jaden Ivey defensively, I think, because I think I've just made up in my mind that like he's looked decent at times defensively, but it's not going to be like a calling card of his game, which makes playing alongside Cade Cunningham like a bigger question in terms of you don't want Cade to have that much on his shoulders defensively as well. So yeah, it was definitely like great game offensively for Jaden Ivey. Could have hoped for a lot more on the other side of the ball, but I think overall, just like the spark he provided as a scorer was much needed on this night compared to others. So at least credit to him for that. But yeah, totally agree on the defensive question marks.
Yeah, and like, I don't want this to come off as me dogging on Jaden Ivey, because I'm a big a fan of Ivey's game as anyone. I would like them to not trade Jaden Ivey here at the deadline. I would just throw that out right now. So like, listeners don't get me the wrong way, but like Jaden Ivey and Karis LeVert played about the same amount of minutes. All right. Karis LeVert played 16. Jaden Ivey played 17. Ivey outscored him. All right. He went 15 points. LeVert had 2. LeVert only takes 1 shot. Jaden Ivey went 6 of 8 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3. So that's great, right? But to me, that's kind of the end of the good. Karis LeVert out rebounds Jaden Ivey. LeVert has 3. Ivey has 2. For LeVert, it was 2 defensive rebounds. Again, though it doesn't sound like a lot, but we're talking about middling minutes. So it's kind of a big deal. Jaden Ivey had a negative assist to turnover ratio this game. For a guy that's handling the ball as often as he is, that's not great, right? LeVert and Ivey both had 2 turnovers, but Karis has 3 assists. Ivey has 1. And then Karis LeVert has 2 steals on top of it. So, I get it. Like, Karis LeVert did not have a nice night at all. Ivey was scoring the ball much better, but defensively, impact for the guys around him, you have to give Karis a little bit of credit there. And if you're looking for Jaden Ivey to take minutes away from LeVert, which I think is a fair thing to want right now with the way that these rotations are set up, Ivey's going to have to start doing that other stuff at a higher rate as well.
Yeah, and in his first quarter stretch, like YouTube user brings up here, the Suns, how many 3-pointers they had while Ivey was on the floor. Grayson Allen didn't get going from 3 until later in the game. I think Gillespie had those like 2 quick threes in the first quarter until he added the others a bit later. So yeah, I think, the Phoenix, their highest scoring quarter in the game was the first quarter. So you can say that it was a decent amount. I think Ivey just got 5 or 6 minutes in that first quarter stretch that he had. But yeah, I think it's a fair assessment to say that like Phoenix was able to put up their most productive offense when Ivey was on the floor, if you just do like on and off for him and Karis.
All right, let's slide over. Actually, real quick, I want to Pistons talk's making me laugh with this one. Karis LeVert is the new Corey Joseph. I pulled up Corey Joseph's stats. You ready for this, Blake?
I was a Corey Joseph guy.
He was solid in Detroit. So in the one full season he plays with the Pistons, it was 8 points. He had 3.6 assists. Apologies for the dogs in the background. Someone just rang our doorbell. 2.7 rebounds for Corey Joseph. Karis LeVert, I get he's not been as good as some people have wanted, but like 8 points. He's averaging 3 assists or so while shooting 37% from 3, like in 20 minutes a night as well. Like Karis has not been bad, I think. And this team's obviously a lot better. So I think you got to give him a little bit more credit for the production than you gave Kojo,
Yeah, and I think we touched on Karras a decent amount last week too, but he's just had a super up and down season. You can say that about, like, we're just talking about Jaden Ivey since his return. You can certainly say the same thing about him as well. I get the sort of discussion around Carrot just because I think he doesn't fit this team's timeline. He's not the most like exciting player in the world with the opportunities that he's getting. And I think a lot of it is he is getting used to a new situation, a new role. I mean, this dropped off a little bit, actually most of the bit last year, but he's been a starter for the great majority of his career. He transitioned to a bench role a little bit his second to last season in Cleveland. And then last year in Cleveland and Atlanta, he was like totally coming off the bench, but getting more minutes a game. And I think just because of this Jaden Ivey situation, and then couple that with the start that Dennis Jenkins had to the season, like that has taken away from his minutes a decent amount. I think Karras has still been able to be productive at times. But yeah, he's definitely had those like 1 for 8, 1 for 9, 1 for 10 nights. I think that's just going to be a part of it. And I mean, the trade deadline's coming up, which we'll talk about. We'll see if he gets moved around. But I mean, I still think he's a good depth piece to keep in it, unless there's a good deal to move off of him. But yeah, it makes the Jaden Ivey question tough. And then Dennis as well, if he's going to get more minutes. So yeah, Karras is like a really rough watch at times, but then other times he's provides some big buckets. And I think he's an impactful player to keep around if you can.
And I'll just say too, like, if you want to get Karis LeVert out of town because, you know, he's just the next Corey Joseph or whatever, and you just think it's a terrible fit, he's like a safety blanket for JB Bickerstaff. Be careful what you wish for, all right? Because minutes where Jaden Ivey has been running point guard have not been great. I'll admit that minutes where LeVert is really running the show haven't been amazing either, but they have been better, right, than what we've seen out of, I think, Ivey while he's been in that role. Best on the team probably been Dennis Jenkins, so maybe there's your argument, right? You get rid of Karras, you open up some minutes for Jenkins, but if that's not how the team goes with it, and it ends up being more of Jaden Ivey running the show, like it's not there yet. I don't think Ivey's at that level yet, but we do have a little bit of trade rumors to talk about. So why don't we've already been talking about Jaden Ivey. Let's start with that one. So Jake Fisher, now admittedly, both of these rumors are kind of, from both of our perspective, guys, a little bit of a taken with a grain of salt. This isn't Shams. This isn't any of the heavier hitters in NBA insider circles. Not to discredit either of these guys, but less of an accuracy rate is all we're trying to say. Regardless, Jake Fisher just a couple days ago mentioned that the Pistons were gauging interest in Jaden Ivey. Now, from that article, it still does not sound like the Pistons really want to move on from Ivey or want to package Ivey with Tobias Harris for like a big trade package or return. But Fisher was kind of talking about how they're listening, right? They're kind of open, or not open to offers is not the right word, but they are, well, just say they're listening. They're listening to other teams if there's any interest on Jaden Ivey. So what did you think about that rumor when you saw it?
I mean, I still am leaning toward the Pistons keeping Jaden Ivey past the trade deadline. I don't certainly I think the only way that you're going to move off of Jaden Ivey is if you're getting some sort of upgrade, like one of the higher tier players that might be available on the trade market. Obviously, if you get to a super high tier, then you have to add Tobias Harris and the conversation gets a lot bigger. But I would understand if the team moved on from Ivy just because you don't know what his future is going to be in terms of like whether he's eventually going to get some sort of extension or just if he's going to remain in town for the future, as you have all these other young players that you are probably going to have to pay eventually, depending on how things go. I mean, we think Jalen Duren has certainly played himself into an extension and being a big part of this team moving forward. But I mean, if the Pistons are able to get an interesting piece for Ivy or some other team is willing to give up a first round pick, which I don't necessarily think will be the case, I would understand it. But I just don't really think that the reward is there in moving on from Ivy right now, unless you are getting a serious upgrade in return, like in the Michael Porter Jr.'s and the Lauri Markkanens of the world. But the Pistons are going to have to give up a lot more than Ivy to get one of those players. So it just doesn't make sense to me. There could be some deal that I'm not really considering right now. But I just feel like Ivy is going to be in Detroit for the rest of the season, at least.
That's my feeling as well. Like I'm trying to think of it from the perspective of like, what if Jaden Ivey were on a different team and I were interested in the Pistons acquiring a guard, right? And so I'm looking at maybe Jaden Ivey as a candidate to bring in. I think it's difficult to make an argument as of right now that Jaden Ivey is anything other than a second draft candidate, which usually is not, you're paying a premium price to go and get them. I could imagine a lot of teams looking at what Ivy's done so far this season and going, okay, maybe it's not working out in Detroit. Maybe we can get Ivy on the cheap, and you've got a former top 5 pick that still has a lot of potential, still on his rookie contract that you can bring in-house, see what he's got for the rest of the season, and then make a decision on that extension after that. And, the Pistons have done this in the past, right? We've seen plenty of this to mixed success, but you're thinking of, with this type of package, you're thinking of like what the Pistons gave up to get James Wiseman. You're thinking about like a trade version of Josh Jackson, right? That's the kind of thing that you're looking back at for this type of deal if it's Jaden Ivey. And from Detroit's perspective, I'd rather have Ivy than a couple of extra second round picks at this point. I think he still provides a lot of value and he's better than what he's shown. We've got 3 years of history that would suggest that. He's just got to get his legs back under him and unlock it. So I'm confident that he will. I would think that the Pistons probably are too. And yeah, I don't see. Maybe he plays really well down the stretch and you get like a sign and trade deal or something going in the off season. That's possible, but still to me, I think the most likely scenario is just him playing out that qualifying offer next season and you kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, you brought up the Wiseman deal, like the Pistons send out Sadiq Bey and get, I think it was like 5 second round picks that they reroute to get James Wiseman. Like, it would probably be it. We've seen how difficult it is to get first round picks included in a deal unless it's a player of a certain caliber. And I think with trade packages that are thrown out in advance of the trade deadline or just before a deal actually happens are always a little bit heightened, like especially in a scenario like this where it's Jaden Ivey, who certainly has shown some promise, but has been up and down, has been out missed a lot of basketball. I don't know if a team is necessarily willing to give up something of value specifically for Ivy alone to where it would make the Pistons pull the trigger on a deal. So just mainly for that, I think it's most likely that Ivy sticks around past the deadline.
All right, so probably the bigger one, maybe a little bit more fun. Mike Scotto, Jaren Jackson Jr. is registering interest from the Detroit Pistons. I think was it the Celtics as well that
Yeah.
were listed in that. So we now have a loose connection here between Jaren Jackson Jr. and Detroit. And for full clarity, everything we've heard so far out of Memphis is that they would just rather not move on from Jaren Jackson Jr. They're ready to go on from John Morant, but Jaren Jackson Jr. is still 26 years old, still under contract for them. It's not a ridiculously expensive deal. Seems like they'd just as well keep him around and maybe even build a little bit with him. But there's a little bit of interest. So what do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, just the situation that Memphis is in right now makes my eyebrows raise a little bit at this. I think I would be much more shocked if Memphis got rid of Jaren Jackson compared to Ja Morant, just because of everything we've seen and how that situation is turning out. But I don't think Jaren Jackson would necessarily get moved maybe until he requests a trade. We've seen how much of a dark turn the Ja situation has got. So I don't think something similar to that would happen with Jaren. But as a player who he's in his 8th season in the NBA, he certainly wants to win. If eventually push comes to shove, then I could see the Pistons dabbling in it. I mean, if it is a serious thing that the Pistons would make, the biggest question that comes in is, what does this mean for the future of Asar Thompson? What does it mean for Isaiah Stewart eventually getting a new deal? I mean, Jaren Jackson's a guy who was the defensive player of the year a few years ago, already has a couple of all-star appearances on his under his belt. So obviously it would raise this team's floor defensively, which we know that is something that they pride themselves on. So I think it's a fit that way. And then Jaren definitely brings in some additional shooting that can help with the Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren question and just making Cade's life a little easier. I don't think it's the clearest fit in the world, but just because of how good a player he is, if he's seriously on the table, the Pistons should certainly consider it. And I think they could put together a deal that would work. You'd have to give up a lot, but if that's the swing that the front office is most comfortable taking, I wouldn't hate it at all.
So I'll end up taking the opposing position here because honestly, I'm just kind of out on the idea entirely. Part of it has to do with the price. Like you said, I'm sure that's going to be a really expensive deal, especially with Memphis posturing like they just don't want to move him. But I think the first thing to note is Jaren Jackson Jr. this season is going to be paid $35 million. Okay, that's great. Well, he just signed a contract extension and his cap hit's about to go up over $50 million for 3 out of the next 4 seasons. Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be expensive, really, really expensive. So that's first. Second, so the year he actually won Defensive Player of the Year, he averaged 3 blocks per game. That's awesome. He's not gotten over 2 blocks per game since then. He's a center who does not rebound the basketball. His career rebounds per game number, 5.5. This man is 7 foot, 7'1". Oh no, okay. He's only 6. He's listed at 6'10". That feels low. He's bigger than that. He's taller than that. But regardless, this is a big dude that doesn't rebound the basketball. He's got a good reputation as a shooter. Well, he's been over league average the past 2 years. If I go back through his career, I can only find 2 other seasons where that's true. So half of his 8-year career has been spent under league average from 3-point range. And then his field goal percentage is also worrisome to me. So the year he wins Defensive Player of the Year, up over 50%. only his rookie year was he also over 50% from the floor. So, and he's got a reputation, right? And you've seen this when the Pistons have played Memphis. He's not the most physical player. He doesn't bang around down low in the post all that often. That's not where he gets the majority of his points. His field goals have gone down now this season. They have the past 2 seasons. He's a center. You're going to have to play him at the 4. Jalen Duren covers up his rebounding issues, but are we really sure that Jaren Jackson Jr. is still a defensive player of the year candidate? Because I'm not. I've got, 6 seasons here where he's not averaged more than 2 blocks per game. And his minutes have been fairly consistent over that entire stretch. Now I get it, right? His 3rd season, he missed a lot due to injury. So maybe you can write that one off, but still, I'm just not as high on him as a player as I think the consensus is. Maybe you can persuade me.
No, that's fair. I think a lot of it is maybe a scene change would help him out, just with how everything in Memphis is going, and Ja's mostly like not being able to be on the floor. Like I think Cade would, playing next to Cade would be great for Jaren Jackson Jr. But you can say that about nearly any player in the NBA. And I think, just going back to the price, like if you're going to go trade for Jaren Jackson, you're not getting away with it without including like Ron Holland or Asar Thompson in the deal, as well as numerous 1st-round picks. So it's going to be a high price. And like you mentioned with his contract, like especially when you're going to want to pay Jalen Duren, and Isaiah Stewart will need a new deal eventually. And what happens with Asar Thompson or Ron Holland, as long as they're not included in the deal, like, does this front office want to pay another big when really the biggest question mark is who is going to be the second offensive option? It could be Jalen Duren. It could be Jaren Jackson in this theory, but maybe they'd rather go for a guard or wing to use a lot of that salary over. So I wouldn't be mad at them for that. I mean, I just did nothing to convince you of the deal. So maybe like I'm talking myself out of it as well. I just think it's clear that this team needs another second or tertiary star. So if he's one of the ones that's available, I wouldn't hate it, but it's definitely not the perfect fit just because of the position he plays and the type of player he is.
And like, at the deadline here, I would not be opposed to adding another front court player. I kind of like the idea, actually, really solidify that the kind of 3-4-5 position in the rotation. I think that they could benefit from that. I don't think that Jaren Jackson Jr. is the guy, especially not for the price that's going to cost to get him. And then after the fact that, that $50 million salary thing is a really big hang up for me for, a player that I just don't think he's as good defensively as his reputation would suggest. I don't know. I just don't. I've not seen it. And if you want a player who brings the defense that you think, right, Jaren Jackson Jr. brings to Detroit, playing next to Jalen Duren, then like, why don't you just push to start Isaiah Stewart? You're getting roughly the same thing, more shot blocking, better rebounding, and they're shooting the same dang percentage from 3. Like, okay, maybe Stu doesn't put up as many shots in the mid-range, but like, I'm cool with that. I don't know about you guys. So like, I don't know. I would be unfortunately out on that deal. We got a good Asar Thompson question. Let's see if I could find it. Here we go. Okay, so this was from our guy, OG unnamed YouTube user. It says Asar Thompson's inconsistencies on offense need to be figured out before his extension. I don't love him as a ball handler. He's shown a huge improvement from how bad he was last year, but he still doesn't have a tight handle. I think that's all fair. So before we get into any more trade conversations, why don't we just do a little bit of a kind of check-in on Asar Thompson? Because I do think he started off really hot, right? and it's fallen a little bit. So what have you seen out of him, and just maybe where are you with that extension idea so far?
Yeah, so I mean, just to take it further, like month by month, in 5 games in October, Asar Thompson averaged about 14 points a game. November and December, he both averaged 11 points a game, and thus far through January, he's just under 9 points a game. So obviously, the big question with Asar is always going to be what is his role on offense. I mean, I think it's going to be very hard to convince any NBA front office that a player is worthy of a considerable extension. I don't think Asar will be anything close to a max player, but just a considerable dollar amount when, I mean, black hole is quite harsh, but when you're just not getting that much offensively, I think it's always been the question with him. It's certainly cooled off a bit since Asar had a stretch in like right around Christmas where he had 14 points against the Hornets, 18 points against the Blazers, and 19 against the Kings, which I believe that 19-point game was his season high. No, he scored 21 against the Celtics earlier in the year. So, but a top 3 player on your team that has only scored 20 points once through almost like halfway through the season, it's just going to be, that extension will be difficult. I think there's probably a deal that both sides could work out, but like I'm not convinced that it's going to happen in this offseason. Similar to the situation that Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey went through. And that's been fine so far. I know every player is going to be in a different position, and Asar certainly, I'm sure, will want to get some deal done as soon as possible to secure his future. But I think he has a lot to prove offensively in terms of what he will look like and how he can fit and how he can contribute into this offense. And as of recent, I think it's certainly been a tough stretch against that case.
Yeah, it's difficult. Look, I think I'm with YouTube user when he said that the handle looks a little better than it did last year. I agree with that. I think it looks a little bit better. It's just, I'm looking at his career numbers right now on Basketball Reference, and it is surprising the extent to which Asar Thompson has been more or less the same guy for about 3 seasons now at this point. We've got a good enough sample all 3 of these years to talk about it. So I think that it's fair to bring it up now. I mean, there's not a lot of leaps that you're seeing, at least in the numbers. I think in the soft skills, maybe there is. We already mentioned the ball handling. That's fair. I think he has improved a bit as a cutter. He's getting better with his timing on that, and that's great. So I've enjoyed watching that. I think that's an improvement that he's made. It's just there's not much offensively that's showing up in the stat sheet. And on top of that, he really has been basically the same defender that he was last year. And that's not to discredit that, first of all, because he was one of the best defenders in the league last year. But before the season started, you and I, Asar Thompson was getting kind of, maybe he's in the most improved category, right? He was getting the odds for him to winning. A lot of people thought he might take a big leap this year. And you and I talked, we thought that, hey, maybe that's actually going to come defensively, right? Well, maybe he gets up to like 2.5 steals per game or something, just take that defense to another level. And he really hasn't. He's been pretty much the same guy on that end of the floor as he was last year. His rebounds are up a little bit, and that's solid, but his field goal percentage is actually down. Yeah, he looks pretty much the same to me, which I guess is noteworthy for a third-year pro.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, honestly. And I think there's been more I mean, he's always been a project offensively, but I feel like even more I've come into question with maybe just the decision making and the shots he takes. And I think we've talked about even before this season how he can contribute offensively is through cutting, finding easy shots. And I think there just hasn't been a surplus of those easy looks that he can convert on, which is making his life a heck of a lot harder in terms of trying to find a way to grow as an offensive player. And I mean, yeah, his free throw percentage is down too. His 3-point percentage is up a bit, but we know that's never going to be a huge part of his game. Like he's scoring 1 point more per game compared to what he did last year, but he's also playing some more minutes too. So I don't think there's anything that necessarily jumps off the page in how Asar has improved. And I think the eye test really, if you watch any of the Pistons games this far, kind of confirms that. And it's tough because I'm not expecting him to make this huge offensive leap because I don't think that's ever going to be the main part of his game. But I think you just need to see little improvements, finding another easy look or two, getting his scoring up 2 or 3 points a night to like prove he can give this team 15 points a night as a starter and a main piece moving forward.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Because it's not a terrible outcome for your former top 10 pick to level out as one of the best defenders in the NBA. Okay, so like this isn't inherently a bad thing that's going on with Asar. I just think it's particularly, it stands out, right? When you look up and down this roster and like Cade took a step. He's, for as good as he was last year, he's even more impactful. You feel him on the court more than you did last season. Isaiah Stewart took a leap from a really good backup big to the best rim protector in the NBA. We've gone and talked at length about Jalen Duren, the improvement he made offensively over this past offseason. You can go up and down this roster, and you're going to struggle to find a player that was here last year that didn't improve. And let's throw Jaden Ivey out because obviously the injury, right? So we don't know where he's actually at yet. Remains to be seen whether he can build on what he was to start last season or if this is just a recovery year. So we got to set him aside. But for the most part, just about everyone else, I mean, heck, Dennis Jenkins was on a two-way last season, right? That's night and day, the type of player that he is. So when you're going up and down this roster and you're going, all right, this guy got a lot better. This guy got a lot better. This guy took a huge leap. And you get to Asar and looks about the same. I don't think that this I think everyone else is making him look worse is what I'm trying to say. I think if in a normal NBA context, this wouldn't be the end of the world. You'd be like, okay, so Asar's kind of who he is, and he's a very good defender, and we want to keep that around because that's a huge and valuable piece. But in the Pistons, everyone else is just like took a big leap forward, and they kind of left him behind. And so it makes him look a little bit worse for not having a major leap as well, when what he's giving them is incredibly valuable and important for the team. Does that make sense? I don't feel like I'm explaining this well because like I don't feel it's that bad, but I don't know.
I mean, like the numbers speak to it a bit. Like his scoring efficiency has went down, his shooting efficiency has went down. They're not huge. Like he hasn't taken a big step back, but it's close enough to where you can certainly make a discussion. Like year 3, every player is different, but it should be that year that you're taking a leap, and especially when the team as a whole is doing that. And like you said, he's consistently one of the best players on the floor when he plays for different reasons. So he still brings an incredible amount of value to this team. It's just, we knew the offense was always going to be a project. And I think the project is moving along a little bit slower than anticipated. So it's fair to question, like, is this just what it is, or is there more to grow? And I think that's a big question that Asar Thompson has to answer himself the rest of the season, to give the front office and the organization just more confidence in giving him that deal that we all, at least at one point, thought he was going to get as soon as he could.
Yeah, and to YouTube users' point with the extension, the only real takeaway, that I guess this isn't a takeaway, but maybe you start getting curious. You're a little suspect, and you start thinking, okay, Mel, maybe if I'm going to make a terrible comparison to the going to work team, maybe Asar Thompson's more Tayshaun Prince than like Rasheed Wallace or something, right? Like, this is more of really, really good player, but not one of the pillars. You know what I mean? And that's fine. If that's what you got, that's great. That's still an important piece. But maybe that's important to kind of keep an eye on now as it moves forward.
Yeah, and I agree with this point that YouTube user brings up too. Like, the roster construction isn't doing Asar any favors, because it's not like the team is loaded with floor spacing, and we've talked about shooting being an issue, or just somewhere that they want to grow. And I think the main issue with that is playing next to Jalen Duren a lot of the time, a guy who isn't going to shoot threes really ever. So it just puts the roster in a difficult spot just because of how it was built. And it's tough because of how well they've played as a group. You don't want to make a drastic change by any means. And Asar still brings a ton of value and in other areas, but it's something that you have to cover for. And it could be a lot easier to cover for if the roster was built a little differently. But you also just can't make a change with this team sitting at the top of the East and arriving a lot sooner than we all expected.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's wrap up on this. All right. So our guy Camille says, "Hey guys, what's up? We need to make a trade. We should reduce the overload at the guard rotation and add some reinforcements to the wing." I think that's fair, right? If you're looking at the way that this team is stacked up, they've got a lot of guards. They don't have a lot of wings or bigs. I think either's kind of fair to focus on. So what we wanted to do to end the show here, so maybe we could spend 5 to 10 minutes on this, and then we'll kind of get out of here and leave you guys to the rest of your Friday evening. But our guy, Bobby Buckets, Robbie Betalon from DBB, he put up a great article on Detroit Bad Boys. It's titled 4 Trades I Would Do If I Were Trajan Langdon. And in this, he has 4 targets. And so we also pulled up the Spotrac trade candidate list and to try and generate some more as well. But what we wanted to do is kind of look through these 4 targets and maybe just rank who you think would be not most gettable, but most impactful if the Pistons were able to bring them in-house. So Robbie brought up Max Christie, Jeremy Grant, Michael Porter Jr., and Trey Murphy III. And now, of course, there are some others in the on the Spotrac link as well, which you guys can go and find. Maybe a player like Colin Sexton, Malik Monk, who was linked to the Pistons over the summer. You could look at maybe Klay Thompson, Jonathan Isaac, Daniel Gafford, Obi Toppin, Grant Williams, Bobby Portis. The list goes on. So let's look at just the 4, I think, from that trade, from that link, right? That trade article that I mentioned: Trey Murphy III, Michael Porter Jr., Max Christie, and Jeremy Grant. Talk about those 4 real quickly, and then any other names that you're thinking of right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think when everyone reads Robbie's piece, which you all should, you'll see different trade package ideas for all these players. And I mean, Michael Porter Jr. and Trey Murphy III are obviously going to bring the biggest price tag, and I feel like are a little bit maybe unrealistic, just because I don't think the Pistons will be willing to give up that much. But Michael Porter Jr. is having himself an all-star type season, so I'd have to put him at the top of the list, like 1A, 1B with Trey Murphy, and that's like, I think these names would all be good. And Max Christie was someone that I named, I think a few episodes back, but with the Mavericks and AD's injury and just how their season is going, Max Christie's only 22 years old on an affordable deal. He brings a lot of shooting and will make Cooper Flagg's life a little bit easier. And when Kyrie comes back as well, I think it'll be hard to get him out of Dallas. Like, they might want a premium for him, which I don't know you should necessarily give. And Jeremy Grant, like, I don't mean to write him off. And I think the reason, like, you may be able to get him for a reasonable price is just because his age. And then he's signed for 2 more years at a decent salary. But hey, in 27 games that he's played this year, he's averaging just under 20 points a night for the Blazers. So he brings a lot of scoring, obviously a face that we know very well. I mean, I like Camille's idea of bringing in a wing. It's just so tough because a lot of, like, those are the type of players that everyone wants around the league. So how are you going to do it in a way that doesn't break up all the great energy and chemistry that this roster has? I mean, you mentioned Obi Toppin. I think that's another name that he can even slide into the Pistons TPE at $14 million a year. Another name I'll throw out, and I don't know if the Suns would be willing to get rid of him because of the season that they're having, but Royce O'Neal is another guy that that would help. I mean, almost Javonte Green-esque, but Royce O'Neal is on the Suns books for 2 more seasons after this one, right around like 10, 11 million. So it's not a crazy salary, but he's another name I'd at least see if you can check in on. And I think a few folks around the Pistons community have brought up Sam Hauser as well. Obviously, like that one for the shooting, but also the Celtics are having a good year. So will they want to give him up, a player on an affordable deal that can help them right now too, as they're overperforming? So I'm trying to find names that are reasonable, can slide into that TPE, but I think a lot of teams will be trying to target the same guys. So it's just a matter of whether the Pistons are willing to give up what it takes to get those players, because I think wings, that especially ones that can shoot, will drive a little bit of a premium, just because that's what everyone needs, essentially.
Agreed. Let me throw one more name out here, and I don't think I've actually seen this name brought up before, but it kind of stood out to me as I was prepping for the show today and kind of looking through Spotrac at big players earning $14 million or less. So this is kind of in the vein of Bobby Portis, who I think is a great name to bring up. I would love to steal him from Milwaukee if the Pistons could. But how would a Grant Williams sound to you? On a, he slides right into that traded player exception. Now, he's been out a lot of this season with a knee injury. I'm looking at Basketball Reference now. He's only played 3 games so far. I think they only recently reactivated him. And in those 3 games, he's played about 14 minutes. But, historically, right, if you're looking at the player who he was the past few seasons when he's been healthy, it's kind of a starter bench hybrid type player, and somewhere in the mid 20 to 30 minutes a night. And the killer is he's a very good 3-point shooter, usually right around league average or just above. Grant Williams, since he was at Tennessee, very high IQ basketball player, tough, has a little bit of a reputation that fits with what the Pistons are doing right now, if you catch my drift on that, and has just kind of been a good rotation level big, even though he's undersized. So I know that this doesn't fix the size issue, because now you're bringing in another power forward and frankly kind of a center hybrid as well, who's 6'7", 230. But off the bench, for a guy that you're not going to have to allocate a ton of minutes to, fills a need at that backup 4 spot, I think, can help you kind of clear out the guard room if you'd like to make a secondary trade after that. I feel like he'd fit. I kind of like it. I can't imagine he'd cost anything. If Charlotte is looking to do what it seems like Charlotte wants to do, they probably would just jettison him into the TPE, maybe with a pick or two coming back, if that. I don't even know. They might just be happy to get rid of him.
I think it's all a health question. Because I mean, like you said, he was recently activated, but in the past 2 seasons thus far, he's played 20 games. So, like historically, the player he is, I think does make sense, but it's all about availability. I think we've seen Trajan go or prioritize that, which as he should. The previous regime didn't, and we saw how that turned out. But if the Pistons are confident in his health, then certainly there were like a Grant Williams trade could certainly turn into a physicals thing and how all that goes. But I think it would make sense for sure, just because of what the team is looking for and the type of player he is. He's been available most of his career other than the past 2 years, but it's all a question of health for me.
Yeah, and agreed with the question of health, because so last season he missed so much time because he tore his ACL. This season, I don't know. All right, I don't follow the Hornets this closely, so I don't know for sure which knee this injury was on, but this year he's missed time with a knee injury as well. I don't know if it's the same ACL. I don't know if he re-aggravated something. So yeah, the health issue is you'd have to be very confident about that. I'm just, it's tough, right? Because I'm trying to think of names and find names that fit into that TPE, traded player exception, that are as unexciting as Dennis Schroeder was last season, but yet could be as impactful as Dennis Schroeder was last season, right? And, I don't know, is Bobby Portis a name like that? Could Grant Williams be a name like that? I don't know. You look around the league, like Isaiah Joe out of OKC would fit in. Would they want to get rid of him? I don't know. I doubt it. It's tough, especially this far out. I do think more will become clear as teams start negotiating other deals, because the one advantage with that traded player exception, you don't have to send out anything. So the Pistons very easily could just get tacked on as a third or a fourth team, take a player coming back who fits into the rotation here and what they need. And, they didn't really need to do anything outside of it.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely move we'd see. It's just, who is it going to be? I think it could even be someone. I think we're doing a solid job of looking down the list at realistic candidates, but it could be someone not even on our radar. So yeah, I think we'll see a similar trade deadline to last season, which ended up working out very well for the Pistons. And yeah, they might just try to. They should honestly keep this roster intact because of everything that they've done this year. There's certainly ways that the team can get better, but getting better in a considerable way will definitely take a price. And I probably wouldn't be willing to pay it. I don't think the team thinks the same way. So I think our head is in the right spot. It's just about who will that player be and what will the Pistons have to give up? Maybe Yabusele, who hasn't been
I'd
doing
honestly
much.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, who hasn't been doing much in New York. I mean, he has a small player option for next year, but maybe they'd be willing to get off him. And I mean, he hasn't been great in his minutes, but he can be an impactful player too. So we'll see. I mean, the trade deadline is just in a few weeks here now, which is crazy already.
All right, here's what I want to end on, Blake, and I'll let you wrap up after you respond to this. But Thugway Joe says Grayson Allen is a Piston, just not in the uniform. don't disparage our Pistons and their reputation like that. The Pistons play tough. They play defense. They play hard, but they're not. None of these guys are dirty to me. I think Grayson Allen's a little shit. Pardon my language. I do not like his game much at all. I think that is a slight to our Pistons, and I will not let it stand.
I feel like we've talked about Grayson Allen in different seasons for the Pistons, mainly when they needed shooting as badly as they did, which they still probably need to a degree this year. But yeah, love his ability to make shots and get them up and not be afraid and make them at a pretty high rate compared to the rest of the league. But yeah, I
really loved his ability to not make the shots right at the end of the game.
That too.
Last night, that was great. I appreciated him for that.
Yeah, but no, I'm with you on the extracurricular stuff. I mean, his reputation, and I feel like we've seen a little bit less of it as of recent, but yeah, he'd be a guy you'd like to root for when he's shooting the ball, but I'm not sure much else. And YouTube user brings up that Bryce brought up Vit Krejci from Atlanta. I like that one too.
That'd be a good fit. Yeah, I'd be a fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta has a lot of wings, a lot of shooting. Maybe a Luke Kennard reunion. He'd fit into that TPE. Things like that. But yeah, I like the Krejci idea a lot as well.
All right. I think that we should probably wrap it up there. In one of these next couple episodes, we're going to get our resident cap expert at Detroit Bad Boys, Kyle Metz, on the show, or at least we would like to. We're going to reach out, hopefully negotiate that and get him on. I'm sure he'd be happy to, but we got to make sure. So hopefully we get him on soon. He'd be the perfect man to talk to about all this trade stuff. So guys, if you're listening, make sure you're watching out for that. You will absolutely want to drop any and all trade questions and salary cap questions that you have for our guy Kyle Metz, assuming we can get him on, and hopefully that we can. Other than that, Blake, I think we can send it away.
Yeah, a reminder, everyone can call our number to ask a question and hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting this show. And shout out to you guys for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.